Actually in Winter Park. But with that, I'm delighted to introduce Graeme Cooper with Cultural Finesse. And Graeme today is going to be talking to us about tales of passion, daring, and stagecraft.
Passion. Okay, I'm glad you reminded me. Thank you, Steve. Yes, indeed. Now, so I'm not going to talk about cultural finesse. I'm going to talk about me, my favorite topic. I talk a lot, as people have discovered in the past. So I'm going to talk a lot this morning, but I'm going to do it in a slightly different fashion because otherwise we'll be here till next Christmas. Not this Christmas, next Christmas. Because I have been around the world many times, literally, mostly on airplanes. And still trying to work on my sense of humor. I'll get there. I could tell you stories till the cows come home. So today I thought I'm not going to try and choose which stories to tell you. I'm going to let you choose which stories to tell you. I'll give you my executive overview, summary of what I've done and where I've been. And then I'm going to use a slightly different format. I have some little cards here, one entitled Passion, the other one Daring, the last one Stagecraft, each with some titles on, and I'll let you choose which one you want to talk about, which one you want me to talk to you about. I'll need some help with somebody who's going to be the timekeeper once we get round to that, because I don't really want to spend more than 3 or 4 minutes on each one, otherwise, like I said, it'll be Christmas and counting. So just keep us on track. And I've also got some props here. So we've got Passion, Daring, and Stagecraft. Passion, Daring, and Stagecraft. Passion, Daring, and Stagecraft. We have props ranging from a cap to a very fetching dress. If you want to hear the story, you'll have to ask me. More my style is the Arab jalaba, to a whole load of T-shirts from all over the place. Blood wedding. Bullock blong me. You fella mi sabi talk to Buslama? No? Okay, well you won't get Bullock blong me then. But cool that we might. Singapore. Up the Poms. What's a pom? Pom is the Australian slightly derogatory word for Englishmen. I was a Godspell apostle. Right, and some little bits and pieces. I've got a cummerbund there because this story, this title today could have been Tales of Chopsticks, Cummerbunds, and Old Mother Hubbards. That dress is called a Mother Hubbard. The cummerbund is there. Chopsticks are here. The original ones, which the story is based on. Anybody know what that is? Okay, right, but you don't know what the inscription says, which is best actor in a European competition. I'll let you have that one. And then some other bits and pieces. So, if you want to hear about some of those props when we get there, ask me a question and I'll tell you the story that relates to the prop. Ask me a question about some of those things. I've also got, I thought the idea today would be to give you some of the tell you some of the learning points, the key things that I've learned around the world. It's not, as I've gone around, it's not meant to be cheesy. It's not meant to be very homespun philosophy, that kind of thing. It's just, I like collecting quotations. So I have what I call my motto grotto, all right, mighty mottos. So if you want to hear, I've only put, 15 of them down on there. Pick a number, I'll tell you the motto, and I'll tell you the story that goes with it. So it's just kind of relating where I've been to some of the ideas that have come up. Does that make sense so far? So I'll give you my executive summary, we'll come back, and then you pick where the questions go, and I'll give you some more stories. And then we'll see how long that takes. Easter, summer holidays. Okay, right. So, also going with this is my destinations card. So some of the places I've been, took me 4 of these little cards to put the executive summary together. So here we go, whiz bang. starting a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I was born. Mummy and Daddy were very proud. And then they had another brother, and he became the favourite, so I got out of there. But it was down the East End of London, in England. Very poor, that's the word that goes with that part of town. It was a very poor part of London, still is by and large. And that, though I didn't realise it at the time, that was one of the key messages from my life, is what I call now is survive, strive and thrive. We had to survive, we had to make do, we had to make do with a lot of stuff. And it was by working hard, which my father did. He had his own business, which he worked with his father, my granddad, running a cycle store, bicycles. They made bicycles, they repaired bicycles, they sold bicycles. I didn't like bicycles. I kept falling off the darn things. But anyway, eventually I learned. But they worked very hard and they survived. And my father got me into a better school than I would have done had I stayed where we were. Does that make sense? So I don't know how it works here in the US, but it was outside the catchment area for where we actually physically had a house where we lived. But he pushed and persuaded the authorities to get me and then eventually my brother into that school, about which I could tell you a lot of stories, but I won't, otherwise we really will be a long time. It was formed in 1536. 1536, the second oldest school in the City of London. Only the City of London School was older by about 20 years. So I went there, went to school, went to university, studied languages, Middle Eastern stuff. Started out trying to learn Arabic and Farsi, which is what they have in Iran, in Persia. That's where the name comes from. And Turkish. Gave up with that lot. It's too much like hard work. There's hard work and there's silly hard work. And although I'm a linguist and speak several languages, I gave up trying to do all of that and just basically did a Middle East studies degree, history and law and religion and all that kind of thing. And what was I going to do at the end of that? University. I had one ambition. And it was very simply this. It was, I want to see the world and I want someone to pay me to do it. Seriously, that was it. I didn't care whether I joined an airline or an oil company, diplomatic service or a bank, or somehow bought a yacht and sailed around it myself. I just wanted to get out there and do it. So long story short, I joined a bank, an international bank, and I stayed with that bank called Barclays Bank International for 25 years. And it was a win-win, total win-win. They sent me everywhere except South America. Should have gone, but they shut the office before I got there. But I went everywhere else in the world. I have worked for them in 15 countries for at least, by saying worked there, I mean 4 months or more. So time enough to get to know the place a little bit. And since then, I've visited many more. So that was my big corporate bit, if you will. So I went, where's my destinations list? France, when I was at school, Paris, Boulogne. I went out to the Middle East when I was at university. With the bank, I went to the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Sharjah. Oh, that's a fabulous name. Has anyone heard of the states that make up the UAE? You've got Sharjah, you've got Dubai, you've got Abu Dhabi, Fujairah, you've got Ras Al Khaimah, which is the best name that any country could have, because Ras Al Khaimah just means the top of the tent. Went there, went to Cyprus on the way back to do some more work. Came here for the first time. I won't tell you when, but it was last century. First time over to the US, went to New York, worked in Atlanta, worked in Chicago, worked in St. Thomas. You may guess which of those was my favorite. Came back, went out to Beirut, got evacuated from Beirut. Not fun at all, scared the what's it out of me, don't want to go back. Went from there on to Bahrain, much more settled, much more fun. Worked there for about 3-4 years. You can tell how much fun I was having because I was voted most eligible bachelor 2 years in a row. and I didn't even meet my wife there. I met her where I went next, which was Zaire, as it was then, Democratic Republic of the Congo. And at the back end of Beyond, down south, I was then also honorary British consul, diplomatic status. CC plates on my car. It was awesome. It was the only thing that got me through the roadblocks. Never mind, hey, I'm the bank manager, I'm British. Yeah, pay. I'm British consul, okay, you go. So it was either learn Swahili or speak French. I spoke French. Got through, and I met my wife there, as you do. Brit, Yank, middle of Black Africa. It's what happens, isn't it? So that's what we both thought anyway. And that was, as I've mentioned to some people, that was part of this long story of getting here to Lincoln, you know, around the world in 80 days and a bit. And I landed up in Lincoln, for crying out loud. Because that's where my wife Janet is from. And we are now here with her family and extended family, and that's what we do. Where did I get to? I've got to finish this executive overview. Right, that was Zaire, Lubumbashi, Kinshasa, if you've heard of those names. We went to Vanuatu on a honeymoon. That was where we first went, and we had our honeymoon on a Pacific island. You're jealous, I know you are. We had 13 months before we got off the island, well, apart from little trips out to other islands around. On the same island where James Michener lived when he wrote Tales of the South Pacific. And we would pass his house in a little cove on the beach on the east coast of the island as we would drive north up to the better beach on a Saturday or a Sunday, because that's what you do. And that was a fabulous 3 or 4 years. Our daughter was born on another island. We went to Australia, came back to the UK, travelled to Italy, to Milan, did some work, to Frankfurt, did some work. I'm only on page 3. Went to Switzerland for a year. Fabulous time, having best job description I ever had, job title. I was Chief Internal Auditor of Barclays Bank, Switzerland. Have you ever thought what the Swiss, how much respect and awe and reverence they give to Chief Internal Auditors? Yes, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Anything you like. We want to keep our books straight. Keep it private, keep it quiet. So I lived there for a year. Went to Egypt on 5-month business trip as well, auditing an Egyptian bank. Talk about different between a Swiss bank and an Egyptian bank. That's too many stories. Then we moved to Brussels, had 3 years there. My daughter's growing up, going through school. We went on to Germany for 4 years, and she grew bigger and bigger. We were in Frankfurt. I had also spent a year project managing in Hamburg. That's another language I speak. Then we came back to the UK. Then we went back out to Germany, went to Switzerland again. I worked a lot. By this time, I had moved from the bank to running my own business, and I'll get back to that in a minute. And basically, the difference was instead of a big organization sending me everywhere, it was me. So I moved from large corporate to mini corporate, had my own corporate, my own company, limited company. And I worked as a consultant, and I still managed to travel. That was the other side of it. And by doing that, I was a little bit more in control. So I traveled all around Europe, working with firms like Monster and Dell and stuff like that. And worked in Switzerland, Dublin in Ireland, in Copenhagen, in Denmark and Amsterdam. And then went back to the UK. And then we got on a plane and came here. Oh well, so that's the executive summary, that's the overview. I went from big corporate, sending me everywhere, came to a turning point in my life where basically my department was made redundant, outsourced, and so I stopped working for the bank after 25 years. I decided, don't want to work for a big company anymore. I'll work with them, but I'm not going to work for them. And so I did, and I set up my own business. And that's the second phase of life. I suppose the third phase will be retirement, still somewhere in the future. But that's where it went. So it was big corporate, mini corporate, still looking what's going to happen. But now I've landed up here and I've started mini corporate again. It's my third small business. I started off when I left Monster. I was head of learning and development for Monster in Europe. And I left them and set up Blue Crystal, which was my business then, Learning and Development Solutions Limited. It's that long, doesn't fit on business cards. Didn't think of that, did I? Blue Crystal, I was basically working as a career coach and as a sales and communications, soft skills coach and trainer. And that's kind of where I am now, just with a slightly different focus on intercultural work, communicating, helping people across cultures do business, rather than just fairly narrow, if you like, helping salespeople or helping account executives or helping customer services people. I've broadened it out a wee bit, and that's where I am at the minute. When I look back, thinking about trying to put this together to talk to you guys, it's very odd when you start looking back at things and think, what was the message I got from here? What did I learn from that? And I've got two very almost mirror images of when I was working for a big company and when I've been working for myself as a small company. And the process, I'm going to have to read my notes because I remember lines, I can't remember these sorts of things. The process was very similar. When I started out, I wanted to see the world and travel, and the bank did that for me. When I left the bank and set up my own business, I said, I want to see the world and travel. Same thing. When I joined the bank, it was, I've got to make money. I need to buy a house. I want to get on. I want to have things, material things. When I've got my own little thing, it's, I've got a house now. Got to look after the house. I've got to look after the money. I've got a family. Ooh, right. But it's the same as when I was in phase one, I need to start a family. I want to get married, have a family, have kids, the usual stuff for an East Ender. So it was do it in the first phase, look after it in the second phase. Make money, keep money. Have a career, get promoted, move onwards and upwards. As a mini person, mini bank, mini business, it was look after it, protect it, the family, the business, and get going again and make sure everything works. Very, very similar, but yet very, very different. And basically it was transferable skills. You ever heard that phrase? Most of us have. Some it goes in one ear and out the other. Others think, what does that mean? For me, it's absolutely key to what I do because it's all about what I've learned and how I use it. You've heard the phrase, knowledge is power. Right, anyone actually believe that? I don't. Because it's not knowledge. I could go on Google and I've got all the knowledge I want. I could read the Encyclopedia Britannica or whatever it is here, or Webster's Dictionary, and I'd have all the knowledge I wanted. Is that going to make me powerful? I suggest not, because it's what I do with the knowledge that's going to count. That's the key thing to it. So it's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. And that's what is actually, looking back through what I've just been talking to you about, it's what I've done with those things that I've learned that have made the big differences to me, even in big business or in small business. So, pause for breath. And I'll stop there and say, well, does anybody have any questions about that whistle-stop round the world tour? Or do you want to go to my little cards and props and all the rest of it? You're cool. Madam.
When you're, I know your specialty is communication
Mm-hmm.
with people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a story of having a meeting with someone that is very different than you and just a challenge that you felt accomplished after you were finished communicating with them?
Yeah, a million. Let me think. What's a short one I can think of? When I was in Vanuatu, which is in the South Pacific, about 500 miles west of Fiji, series of islands. I had a role, because I spoke French, to try and gain some of the customers from the French-speaking banks to come to Barclays. One of those guys was the Pacific manager of Shell, the oil company, Didier Ferry-Passani. He was French. I mean, seriously? An Englishman trying to get a Frenchman to leave a French bank and come to an English bank? That was very, very different. And that was a real challenge. It took me, I will tell you the end of the story is, I did it. How long did it take me? 2.5 years to, let's not say butter him up, but to build a relationship, and that was a real key about it, which I've carried forward into my mini business, if you like, was build a relationship, get to know this guy. He's got so much tradition as a business of Shell, being multinational, multicultural, working all over the place. He did not speak very good English. That was probably my biggest advantage, to be honest. The biggest disadvantage was, I'm English, he's French, and traditionally, if you don't know, that the English and the French are the world's oldest combatants. We hate each other with a passion, lots of passion. But that's, as a country, as individuals, some of my best friends are French. And Didier became one of my best friends. We got to know each other on a business level, on a social level, and as we meshed, as that 2.5 years passed, it became more and more, not easy, but I was able to show him that I could do more things for him, especially if he came to me as the bank manager, as a reference, than he could get from his own bank. And I got him to come across, and for a Frenchman to have a hyphenated name is much the same as an Englishman to have it means they're blue blood. It means they're quote unquote aristocracy. And as I told you at the beginning, I'm right down there, little lad from the East End of London. So that was chalk and cheese, and it was just the people, just getting to know people and getting to know them. And as I've gone around the world, whether that's in the US, whether that's in South Pacific, in Africa, in Europe, it's about the people. You come down time and time again. It's not the business, it's not the name over the door, it's not what they do, it's who they are. It's how you can get to know them. And when I was learning how to be a sales trainer, if you will, the key there was to move out of what in sales training one calls transactional selling. You want to buy a microphone, do you want to buy a camera, do you want to buy a PC, do you want to buy a car, do you want to buy a house? That's a transaction, it's money. I give you something, you give me something, end of, don't see you again. To the opposite, which is relationship selling, which is where we all, especially as small businesses, we need to be. We sell ourselves. We don't sell the name over the door. We don't really sell the products or services. We sell ourselves, which is why everyone comes back to, people buy people. They do, but it's how you sell yourself, how you come across, how you build those relationships that really, really matters. And all the different sorts of business I've been in, that has been the key. And that's why when I joined the bank, I remember, I was in a class of 40 people who had just left university. That was the intake that year for Barclays International, not the domestic bank. And they told us, doesn't matter what degree you've got, doesn't matter, because we were the degree level intake, doesn't matter what degree you've got, whether your languages, maths, sciences, MBA, we will turn you into bankers. And we thought, yay, you're going to join a bank and get a good job. And they said, well, don't worry, Graeme, you've got a languages degree. We'll still turn you into a banker. We'll teach you the banking and the money side of it later. And Doug, you've got a physics degree. Don't worry, we'll teach you the money side and the languages that you need to go to foreign places. So we felt quite inclusive, and that was a big thing about being in kind of a family. That family didn't last long, now I think of it off the top of my head, because we were 40 when we joined. 3 years later, there were 5 of us left. Everyone else had been headhunted because the training was so good, other banks all wanted it. Do you ever get that in your life as a small business person, that people don't want you and they leave you on one side and they go to somebody else? It's the relationships that count. It really is the relationships. Once you spark those, spend all your time keeping those going. And that's where your business will come in all the time. How's that for a short answer to a long question? Okay, anything else?
What was your favorite place?
Oh, I'd have to ask you to define favorite, because there's so many reasons. Is it the climate? Or
Life.
of life?
You have different favorites in your different phases.
Yes.
Where would you
So,
go back?
pardon?
Where would you go back?
Go back to?
Yeah.
At this time of life, it would have to be a combination of the social and the business side of things. So where could I enjoy life, which would include climate and the material side of things, as well as the social side and the people and everything else. So just to try and narrow that funnel down a bit, I would say Geneva, without a question. Beautiful place, enjoyed it, people fantastic, and it helped me to speak French, and that was great. Where else would we go back to? I might go back to England on a visit. I don't think I'm going to go back to England to live. But that's because of the social side, that I have no social side really left over there, no family there. So that kind of is the wrong side. That's where I would definitely not go back to the Congo. Definitely not in a month of Sundays. You can pay me enough to go back to Zaire. Been there, done that, got out. Okay, that's it. Learned a lot about how to survive, very really, but wouldn't go back. Bahrain, still fabulous place. Whatever you read in the news and on TV and everything like that, still a great place to go. I had fabulous 3 or 4 years there years ago, but still I've been through it since, and it's still great.
You go to the Emirates again?
Would I go to the Emirates on business? Certainly, yeah, would love to. To live, don't know enough about it now. I still know enough about Bahrain because I know a couple of people there and in the church there and that, but so I don't know, is the short answer, John. Maybe, certainly do business. I've been there on business back to Dubai about 4 years ago. My goodness, what a change, especially the difference when I was first there, where Dubai was a creek. It was literally an inlet off from the Gulf, and now, wow, you can't help but look up at everything, and ostentatious money everywhere, more big cars, glitzy cars, more rich people than you can, as we say in English, shake a fist at. It's just millions, just tons of them, tons and tons, and the wealth is in your face, which was quite different to what it was then. So personally, it doesn't float my boat, doesn't do a lot for me, but other people it does. So go business, yes. Live, probably not, I would guess. Yeah, that's too many other places off that list. I'd have to go thinking about those. So.
I'd like to go back to the transition from corporate
Yes.
to your own.
To my own business.
What, you talked about transfer of knowledge and how you use
Mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm.
Share about maybe what some of the successes or how you made that transition, and what have been some of the either personal or business struggles to make that transition.
Right. Okay, the baseline for doing it was, as I said, I was made redundant. My job was made redundant, was outsourced. So then it became a case of, well, do I start applying, which I did, to, oh gosh, I've been in a bank for 25 years, I'll join another bank. Easy peasy. Not. So I tried that for several months and thought, okay, that's it. I was very lucky to get a mentor through our outplacement service, if you will, that the bank provided, who had been head of HR for a multinational around Europe. And he just had the mindset which tuned into my mind, my frame of mind. A guy named John Kenyon, and he didn't really need to persuade me, just showed me the way to move on to setting up my own business and taking those skills that I had of interacting with people, not can you work a balance sheet, do you know what cash flows and all that sort of stuff is? Yes, but it's not the people. Can you take those transferable skills of getting on with people, of persuading people, of talking to them, of getting them to do things with you into another sphere? And again, it was, yes, I can do that. What's the machinery to do that? Set up my own little business as a consultant, as I thought of it then. And what I knew best at that time, I'd just left Monster. So it was a combination of Monster. I just moved Monster from as head of L&D from 9 countries in Europe to 15 countries in 12 months. They had bases in, so I was overseeing all of that. So I knew a lot of contacts around Europe, and it was a case of, okay, I know how to get people into jobs. I know what kind of things recruiters or employers are looking for. And on the other side, I'm good at talking to people. So I just put those together and joined as a consultant to another company as a, what do we call it? Career transition consultant. So I was a small company working as a career transition consultant with a bigger company who were in touch with all the other companies. And that was one message, if you like, that I wasn't working for big companies, but I was working with the people who were in them.
You're an outsourced consultant.
There you go, exactly that. And it was how do you survive, how do you thrive as a little tiny thing, little piece of sand on the beach, when there's this great sand dune over there called Motorola, called NatWest Bank, called whatever it may be. And it's really, you come down to, well, as big as any organization is, it's still full of little bits, of departments, of teams, of people working, and all right, the teams and that have changed, but you're still dealing with, I worked a lot with Dell around Europe as a small business consultant working with a bigger business who was working with Dell, B2B level. And when we were working with Dell, it was always with teams of 8 or 10 or 12 people. Yay, that's what I love. I can make relationships, I can build contact, I can get on with 6 or 8 or 10 people. I can't get on with 33,000, but if I narrow it all down, then those skills are transferable. When people would come into my bank, they were dealing with me and I was dealing with them. It didn't matter if it was Didier from Shell or whether it was Sam from PPK yachting company in Vanuatu, or a little lady in Lubumbashi in Zaire who made malachite jewelry, or whether it was a small company in where I was in England, a lady who was a piano teacher. I was working one-to-one with them, just like I was working one-to-one with people in Dell. And that's the transferable skill that you've got to take across. What was the rest of the question?
Any challenges?
Challenges. Making enough money to keep my little business going. And to do that, I guess it would be, as Steve alluded to earlier on, you've got to collaborate with others. You've got to work with other small businesses. You can't do everything yourself. There's the small thing. You just simply cannot. There are things that we are each good at, and we need to recognize for ourselves what those are, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can't do for yourself. So the second and third businesses that I started up in the UK, I was working with other people to form a smaller business, so that we brought individual sets of skills. Give you an example, we set up one called the People Specialists, where we would do some training courses for bigger businesses. And you had me as a trainer, as a communications sales trainer. We had a lady who was a professional mediator, an ex-judge, who would deal with business legalities, if you will. We had a lady who was an HR director, now running her own small business. And we had, what was Ian? Ian is a lawyer specializing in employment law in the UK. So we had the four of us, different but still related skill sets. And it comes back, I guess, to that transferability and how do you fit everything together. And we got on marvelously well. We broke up after 3 years, deliberately. We'd done what we wanted to do, done a couple of projects, and 2 of the 4 wanted to go and do other things, had been kind of headhunted to work up in the City of London. So we said, okay, well, we'll just amicably fold it up and we'll go our own ways. And that was not long before I came out here. So, and then you look back and think, oh, maybe there was a message in that somewhere. We got on well, we did it, yeah, end of. And of your own volition, for your own reasons, you move on to the next thing rather than be pushed into it. And that's kind of it. So, yeah.
Good time for one more question.
Number 3.
Which
On the
card?
list.
Which card? Or
On the table there?
on the mottos?
Yes.
Number 3 is, there is no substitute for experience, but who says it has to be yours? So as a, check that, let's see what it says. As a small business person, as a coach particularly, I'm talking to people who need to understand that it's my experience that I'm bringing to the table. It's what's in my head, it's my knowledge, it's the skill sets that I've got that can help you, that we can build a relationship. As a coach, as a small business, I stand or fall on the relationships I build, on the integrity I bring. That's one of my key values, is as much integrity as I can summon. And I know the stuff because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirts to prove it. And I can select, if you like, from my data bank, which bits of my experience and which bits of my transferable skills will matter to you, will help you in your business. Whether you're in HR, whether you're in grant writing, whether you're in plumbing or multinational computer sales, I know things that will help you. I suppose one big plus for me now is having got to a certain age, and I'd say that was about 15 years ago, I don't have any problem starting off building a relationship with people, because there's always something back in my own personal database that I can think, oh, I know someone who did that, or who's been there, or who's done that kind of business before, or who failed at this. I can always find something. Someone else has played cricket. Someone else has been on stage, and we'll find something that will relate me to you. And once you've broken that ice, then you can start to build that relationship. And those relationships are where we go. That's what it's all about. I love it. And I'm building them here already, which is fantastic. It's kind of the thing about Lincoln, which my wife explained to me before I got here, and I didn't believe it, but now I've been coming back 37 years, and I live here. It's about the people, and if you use the skills that you've honed over the years, you get on with the people far better. And that's kind of where I am. Told you to get cheesy at times, sorry about that. But it's done with all the stories I tell. The difference between me and a multimillionaire coach is my stories are all personal. I don't read books and use the stories in them. I read books, get the message, and translate it into my stories. So anyone who works with me gets my message. And usually that message resonates with the other person. There we go.
Sweet. Well, Graeme, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. My pleasure.
Appreciate it. As a thank you, we want to give you a Focus Sweet teacup. This is not a coffee mug, it's a teacup.
Oh, thank you so much.
There you
Good.
go. And so thank you for being here today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
If you've got more questions, come on up and talk to Graeme. He'll be here. So there's no need to run off. Hang around as long as you like. Meet somebody new before you leave. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here.
Indeed.